Welcome to part 5 of my 9-day bike trip series through the rural communities of southwestern Ontario. In this segment I begin at my campsite at Dalewood Conservation Area in St. Thomas and ride west to Alvinston, Ontario, including a detour through Inwood. Today is Wednesday, May 23rd, 2018, and I got up around 8:15. As I was settling into my tent last night, I came face to face with a large raccoon, so I was very glad to see that my food supply was still undisturbed where I had left it. I quickly packed everything up and was on the road by 9:30. The temperature is already about 19 degrees Celsius and it's forecasted to be quite a sunny day today. After leaving the campground, I headed north along Dalewood Road, then went west along Ron McNeil Line. I next took an offshoot which is called Wonderland Road, which curves and heads north. Usually after about 10 kilometers each morning I stop and stretch my muscles. While I was stopped today, this truck drove by with a giant section of a tree on it. Just up the road from there I spotted this old abandoned railway. The road I'm on now is called Clinton Line and it runs parallel with Highway 401 in the southwest direction. My final destination for today is actually due west of my start point, but in this area the grid of roadways are built on the diagonal. So I'll be riding southwest for about 35 kilometers, then I'll turn and head northwest. I can already feel that there's a lot more wind today than there was yesterday, and it seems to be coming from the northwest. Hopefully the wind direction will change before I need to make my turn and head straight into it. The road I was traveling on for the last stretch is called Longhurst Line, but now I'm turning onto a road called Stafford Line, which is gravel. Gravel roads can really be hit or miss for biking on. In this case the road isn't too bad because the gravel is pretty well packed. However, while I was riding down this road, I passed a grader truck heading in the opposite direction who was resurfacing the road. The freshly graded section of the road was a lot worse for riding on. After a brief stretch along Union Road, I continued southwest along a quiet paved road called Gore Line. I very much enjoy the peacefulness of these quiet country agricultural roadways. Just like many of the roads I've ridden on today, this one eventually ended at one of the crossroads, but then a similar road with a different name continues on the other side. This next road is called Shackleton Line, and I've also crossed into the next municipality. After leaving St. Thomas this morning, I was riding through the township of Southwold, but now I've crossed into the municipality of Dutton Dunwich. For a while I had a really big tractor on my tail because the driver was waiting patiently for an opening to pass me. All the white buildings over there are part of a pig farm. I'm now approaching the community of Dutton. Dutton is one of only 2 communities that I'll be passing through today, which has restaurants available for me to stop at before I reach my destination. The time is around 11:45, but I've only traveled a distance so far of about 36 kilometers with another 53 left to go before I get to Inwood. Although I always enjoy stopping in small towns, I decided to not stop here and wait to have my lunch in the next small town after I've got a bit more distance under my belt. I also wasn't feeling a significant amount of hunger, so I just snacked on an apple on the road. Leaving Dutton, I'm riding in the northwest direction on Currie Rd. I'm just passing over Highway 401 now. The 401 is a long provincial highway which I used to pass underneath of every day on my daily bike commute in Toronto. After riding in the northwest direction for a short distance, it was very apparent that I was riding into a strong headwind. Recumbent bikes are known for being more aerodynamic than conventional bikes, but I normally keep my bike configured in its most upright position to give me the best possible visibility because I mostly ride in the city. However, today was the perfect opportunity for me to try adjusting the seat to a more reclined position. After making the change, I instantly felt like I could ride faster, but part of that may have just been in my head. From Currie Rd, I made a left turn onto Duff Line, which took me in the southwest direction. I'm now passing through the community of Largie, which seems to consist of nothing more than that one big church on the left. It's unusual to see a large church like this in what seems like the middle of nowhere. It's called the Duff Presbyterian Church and was erected in 1895. I've been feeling like I'm under a bit of a time crunch today. Before I arrive at my campground for the night, I'm planning on making a visit to the home of YouTuber One Pug Life in Inwood, Ontario. I've already given him a heads up that I'd like to visit today, but I wanted to be careful to time my visit so that I wouldn't be arriving during a mealtime. So my goal is to arrive around 4 p.m. and I'm hoping that the strong wind ahead of me won't slow me down too much. Speaking of the wind, after that right turn I just made, I'm now on Dunborough Road heading northwest again and riding directly into the wind. Eventually there was a curve in the road and I crossed over the Thames River. Just like how the river which passes through London, England is called the River Thames, the river which passes through London, Ontario was given the same name. London, Ontario is about 100 kilometers upstream of where I just crossed the Thames. After crossing the river, I've now left Elgin County and entered Middlesex County. The new municipality I'm in is called Southwest Middlesex. I made a right turn onto Longwoods Road and traveled for a short stretch before turning left and continuing northwest along a roadway called Dundonald Road. Both of these roads are more busy than I prefer to ride on, but unfortunately almost all of the secondary roads in this area are unpaved, so there really weren't any alternate route options available which were direct enough to be feasible. The time is now 1:30 and I've entered into the community of Glencoe. This is the other town I'm passing through today which has restaurants available, and I'm definitely ready for some lunch now. There are quite a few options available, but the one I eventually decided on is called Palace Family Restaurant. I thoroughly enjoyed the friendly small town atmosphere. I ordered the weekday special, which is a really good deal, and included a cheeseburger and fries, plus coleslaw, plus soup or juice, and also a nice dessert as well. After that nice break from the sunshine and strong wind, I hit the road and continued riding towards Inwood. The time is now 2:15 and I have about 26 kilometers remaining. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, I should be able to arrive before 4 p.m. as I was hoping. The road I'm on is still called Dundonald, which is also known as Highway 80. As mentioned earlier, this road has more traffic on it than what I prefer riding on, but the speed limit is also 90 kilometers per hour. It's not so much that I feel unsafe riding on this road, because the drivers have been giving me a generous amount of space when passing. I just don't find it very pleasant having vehicles whizzing past me every minute or so, and it seems to make the 26 remaining kilometers take forever to complete. Just before that last valley, I crossed into the municipality of Brook Alvinston and also into Lambton County. The road has changed names to Courtright Line, and I'm now heading due west. As I mentioned earlier, the reason I'm traveling to Inwood today is so that I can meet a YouTuber who calls himself One Pug Life. I've been watching his YouTube channel almost every single day for 9 years now, but I've never had the chance to meet him in person. I've really been looking forward to this part of my trip because not only do I get the chance to meet the star of one of my favorite entertainment programs, but I also get to see all the recognizable locations from the videos with my own two eyes. As I'm getting closer, I'm able to recognize the community of Inwood in the distance across these fields. So the road into Inwood is fittingly called Inwood Road, and I made a right turn there. The time now is around 3:40, which is perfect because when I texted Pug from Glencoe, I said I'd be arriving between 3:30 and 4. My approach into Inwood is a pretty unreal experience for me because I keep spotting things which I've seen hundreds of times in videos but never actually seen in person. The experience feels almost like I'm revisiting a memorable place from my childhood or something. The red brick building on the left is where Pug and his girlfriend Tiffany live. I rounded the corner and parked in the driveway. To me, everything in the yard looks smaller in person, which I assume is because most of Pug's videos are shot with a wide-angle lens. I went and knocked on the door and Pug greeted me with one of his standard catchphrases, "What's really going on?" Meeting him and Tiffany was a pretty unusual experience because having watched thousands of his daily videos, I felt like we already knew each other very well, but of course I was essentially a complete stranger to them. I decided to break the ice by playing a song on the piano I'd written many years ago, which Pug had featured on his channel. After that I sat on the couch and we all chatted. Tiffany offered me a nice cold bottle of water, which was greatly appreciated. I also got to meet both of their pug dogs, Abby and Gracie. Eventually I decided I should probably get back on the road and head to my campground. As I was leaving, Tiffany commented that she liked my bike, but that it could really use a few One Pug Life stickers, which they generously gave me. After a very nice visit, I was back on the road and headed towards A.W. Campbell Conservation Area, where I'll be camping tonight. All of those last clips you just saw were borrowed from Pug's daily vlog and used with permission. Please visit the link in the description if you'd like to see his full video. A.W. Campbell Conservation Area is essentially due east of Inwood. The most direct route to get there is along a road called Shiloh Line, which is gravel. An alternative would have been to retrace what I had already ridden along Courtright Line, but I decided to take my chances with the gravel instead. Unlike some of the gravel I had ridden on earlier in the day, this stuff is very loose and hard to find a good part to ride on. At one point while I was navigating from one rut to another, my bike started to fishtail, but I was able to recover without falling. After 7.5 kilometers, I finally reached the segment of Shiloh Line which is paved. I've been wanting to arrive at my campground today as early as possible because I wasn't able to find any information ahead of time about how late their gatehouse is open. The time is now around 4:45 as I'm pulling into A.W. Campbell Conservation Area, but unfortunately the gatehouse is already closed. However, their signage is instructing me to proceed to a campsite and a staff member will be around to visit me. This campground is somewhat similar to where I stayed last night in that the majority of the campsites are occupied seasonally by permanent trailers. Another similarity is that this park sits next to a reservoir which isn't suitable for swimming and also has a swimming pool which is not yet open for the season. So I selected this campsite, pitched my tent, then got back on the road to ride to Alvinston for dinner. The community of Alvinston is only about 5 kilometers away, and most of the ride is just backtracking along the paved section of Shiloh Line. As I was entering into Alvinston, I noticed that the back tire of my bike seemed to be really soft, so I stopped to investigate. I couldn't hear any air leaking out of it, but it had definitely lost a lot of air, so it must be a slow leak. I had been dreading that this might happen, because a few days earlier I noticed that a part of the sidewall of the tire had a rip in it. Rather than tackling this issue on the side of the road, I decided to just pump it back up again and see how long it would hold air. Alvinston is a really nice little community with just a few hundred people. The place where I decided to stop for dinner is called Armours Ale House. I chose a seat with a nice view out the front windows, and I ordered the chicken Alfredo. After dinner I went to the Clover Mart convenience store next door and bought some ice cream for dessert to enjoy back at the campsite. My bike tire was still holding most of the air I had pumped into it, so I just got back on my bike and rode back to the campsite. I'm really concerned that if I try to repair it, that when I remove the tire from the wheel, it'll put additional stress on that rip, and that might destroy the tire completely. Since I'm many kilometers away from any kind of a store where I'd be able to buy a bike tire, my plan is to keep riding with it the way that it is and continuing to pump it up when needed until hopefully I can make it to a suitable bike store. I arrived back at the campground at around 8 p.m. After enjoying my dessert, the sun was starting to set, but I figured there was still enough daylight to do a walk of one of the nature trails within the park. Looking at the map, I decided to try the 2-kilometer lake trail shown in red. One thing that's really distinct about this campground compared to my others is the amount of nature sounds that I've heard since I arrived. There just seems to be a constant soundtrack of birds singing everywhere, and I wasn't expecting that considering the park is a relatively small forest surrounded by farmers' fields. Everything's so calm and still and peaceful. After a very enjoyable walk, I went back to my tent and headed off to sleep. Today I traveled a total of 119 kilometers. Stay tuned for part 6 of this video series, where tomorrow I'm going to attempt to ride to Pinery Provincial Park on Lake Huron, which is near the community of Grand Bend. Hopefully my damaged rear tire will be able to take me far enough to at least get to a town where I can replace it with a new one. I hope you enjoyed joining me on this day of riding. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you thought. And thanks for watching.